And good morning, everybody. Welcome. It is Monday. It is that first day of the week where it is all about getting back on course. And I got to tell you, we have been in this pandemic now for us. For the Redman household, today is day 55 for us. So yesterday being day 54. And I'll tell you, I feel it all over the place. I talk to all kinds of people. We all are feeling the impacts of it. We all are feeling a little bit of the isolation. We're feeling the Groundhog Day. We're feeling the pressure for many of us who are out of work or waiting for the world to turn back on. And I know that slowly they're flipping the switches to go through the different phases of turning the world back on. And then there's the big debate about, well, who's essential and this business essential, but this business isn't essential. And I know all it adds up to is a lot of stress. And obviously we want to try and manage that stress. So on Monday, what I wanted to talk about today is I wanted to dive into a little bit of always looking for the positive in the negative. I think that's one of the biggest things you can do. I think it's one of the biggest things that the overcome mindset does. The overcome mindset looks into the face of the storm and says, okay, where is the positive in this? As opposed to a lot of other people that look into the face of the storm and they go straight to the negative. Oh my God, there's a storm. There's going to be destruction. There's no hope. There's nothing I can do. It's all beyond my control. All those things that people that don't have an overcome mindset say. So on this Monday, I want to talk about looking into the storm and saying, where is the positive? So right now on day 55, I'll tell you one of the biggest positives we have falls into the area of social leadership within the Pentagon of Peak Performance. And social leadership is, who do you surround yourself with and who do you invest time into in those relationships around there? I think right now this pandemic is an amazing time for you to build up some of those social leadership circles, especially the ones that maybe have gotten off track over the years. Americans and probably some of our European counterparts, we're really focused on work. And so much so that it becomes a primary focus, especially as we climb up in our years, when you get between about, 25, maybe 30, and specifically 55 and 60. That window of time in our lives tends to become work becomes a primary focus. And if you look at your rings of influence on people around you related to work and the other circles of influence, friends and family and things like that, there's a natural tendency that people put a lot of time and effort into work, and they put a lot of time and effort into their work relationships. And so often here in this country, there's a lot of people that push their closer personal relationship of friends and family to the side. They almost take a second tier level. And I think this is an amazing time for us to relook at that. If you look at, I call it the rings of influence of teams. If you look at these rings, then think of it like almost like a dartboard, if you will. Just remove all the different number variations, but just a circle of rings coming into a bullseye. And that outermost ring is your friend. That outermost ring is your work relationships. It's people you work with, people that it's coworkers. Obviously, it's your boss, supervisors, people you lead, work acquaintances, business relationships, things like that. So you come into the innermost ring, and it's your closer work relationships. These are the people that you work with, maybe on your team that you've developed a friendship with. Like you hang out with them at work. You may go out and have drinks with them. It might even be clients and business relationships, but there is a personal connection. We're now sending Christmas cards, and there is a decent amount of relationships. From there, it gets into the next ring, gets into our friends and family. These are the people that we have grown up with, that we have spent time with. And that we want to make sure we're taking care of those relationships. And then that innermost ring, the center ring, the bullseye, is our family. That is obviously our spouse, our mate, it's our kids, it is our parents, it's our siblings, it's all those direct relationships that you were literally born into. Or you wed into, and then we need to make sure that we're investing in those. The problem is so many people are putting most of their time and effort into those outer rings. And this is where those rings start to create issues, is when we run into crisis, when suddenly we impact a storm like a global pandemic, or like massive gunshot wounds, or sickness, cancer, or any kind of life-threatening sickness, or anything that can reach the level of life ambush, is a crisis that we may encounter. And if you imagine it, like all of us ride along on trains, we all ride along on trains on life. And so many people identify themselves by the train they ride on. Like, for instance, Jason Redman, I rode on the Navy SEAL train. And I know a lot of SEALs who identify themselves as, oh my God, I'm a SEAL. And when their career is over and they're no longer, yes, they may be a SEAL for life, but you're no longer working in the military. You're no longer working in the Navy. You're no longer assigned to a SEAL team. You are not doing SEAL things. And they just can't get past that. And there's a lot of people like that with their jobs. I see it in the fire service. I see it in the police service. And believe it or not, I see it in other career progressions. So when you're riding along this train, whatever train you ride on, maybe it's the teacher train, maybe it's the investment banker train, maybe it's the military train, it doesn't really matter. But when a crisis comes along, you're thrown off the train. That's just the reality. Oftentimes you're forced to get off that train. When I was severely injured and my career came to a halt, I was forced to get off the Navy SEAL train. After that, I rode the nonprofit train for a while, and right now I'm riding the entrepreneur train. The problem is when you invest so much time into those outer rings, into the work relationships, and you are ignoring the inner rings, or you're not putting as much time, it creates a problem in your life when you have to get off that train. Because the thing is, it's the inner rings, your friends and family, those closest connections, who in a crisis, when you get off the train, they're off the train with you. The rest of the people, they keep riding. So I want you to look into the storm right now of this pandemic and say, you know what an amazing opportunity to rebuild, if I haven't done it, or reinvest and reinforce, if you have done it, these innermost rings. Time with our families, time with our friends. Understand that this storm will pass. This pandemic will pass. It's hard right now. I know for some of us, the world, we got thrown off that work train, and we may not get back on it. We don't know what the future is going to hold coming out of this, but we know that there will be a future, and it's up for us to kind of set that path. But the good thing is that you can set it with the reinforcement and that power of the people around you, the power of your friends and family, because these are the people that, we love each other unconditionally. But you have to invest in them. You have to make sure you're giving them the time and effort. And right now, there's no better time. Reach out to them on Zoom, look for ways to have dinner, look for ways to talk to them. People are lonely. People need that social connection. And right now, you have the opportunity to do that. The work relationships, those will rebuild. The economy will get back up to speed. Whether you're going back to the old job you were doing, or you're still doing that job, or you're pivoting and you're moving to a new job, you'll build new work relationships, new acquaintances. But it's that innermost ring that is vital, the most important. And there will be future crises, and you want to make sure you're investing in them. So that is the message on this Monday Muster. Make sure you are investing in the most important teams in your life. It is important to have balance across the spectrum, but in a crisis, it's so critical that we were spending the time to invest in those most important rings. So guys, that is the message on this Monday Muster. We want to make sure we're always investing in our teams, but specifically those most important teams in the crisis. So I want you to get out there. That is an additional way always for us to stay on course, because, obviously this crazy world we live in, man, we get off course, we get off track. And it oftentimes our social leadership, those are the incredible people that enable it to happen. General Stan McChrystal talks about in when I interviewed him for my book Overcome. He talks about how hard it was when everything happened to him, the whole Rolling Stones article and being forced to resign. And what he talked about is those outer rings went away, so many of them, but it was the inner rings that, and specifically the relationship with his wife, that really reinforced his ability to pivot and move in a new direction of leadership. So that's why it's so important. All right, guys, get out there, crush it, stay off that X, be positive. The Overcome mindset looks for positivity in that storm. Every storm passes. I mean, we don't know how long it'll last. Sometimes it gets really hard if we've been in the storm for a while, but no matter what, beyond the darkness, the light still shines. That's Monday Muster. I will see you guys on the flip side. I'm out.